We are back for another celebration of the 50th anniversary of Title IX. I'm Jordan Griffin. Today, I'm joined by Deputy Director of Athletics, Niesha Campbell. Niesha, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here for the
Me too.
topic. Yeah.
Absolutely. My first question, something I always lead off with, what does Title IX mean to you?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Hard to narrow that down. I think two words initially come to mind, progress and opportunity. I think we've made so many strides in this space since the inception, and I think there's opportunity to do even more. I think Title IX has created progress and opportunity for many student athletes, many sports administrators, and I'm really looking forward to what we can do in the next 50 years. So
Well, you're sitting in a very convenient place with the governor's logo right behind you. Starting not
that's
too
it.
long ago.
I planned that.
Yeah, exactly. No, it looks incredible. How have you been able to adjust so far to your new role at Austin Peay?
Austin Peay Athletics is amazing. The university is amazing. It's been great to be here. The people are awesome. So I've been doing, this is day 31 for me. I started on August 1st, so still fresh. But I focused a lot in my first 31 days on building relationships and just getting to know the amazing faculty on the university side and the staff who work in athletics, getting to know our student athletes, and just really learning the culture of Austin Peay, learning what's important to us, and learning that so I can figure out how to continue on enhancing the student athlete experience. So it's been a lot of learning, lots of meetings, lots of get to know you gatherings, but it's been awesome. We've been pumped. We've had some home competitions, our away football game last week. So the culture is, campus is buzzing. This first, full week of school. We're pumped. We're excited.
And coming from Duke University before that, what's the adjustment been like going from a university like that to a very special university in Austin Peay in Clarksville?
Yeah, it's awesome. So I spent 8 years at Duke University. Right before coming here, though, I was at a different institution. I was at a TK through 12 school. But Duke was pretty special. I have to say, I'm from Durham, born and raised, and very early you choose sides between the two blue schools. And I have always been a Duke athletics fan. And so being able to work at that institution where I've grown up being a fan of was really special. The student athletes, they were special. The people that I worked with for the 8 years that I was there, they were awesome. It was like a family. And so I will always be a Blue Devil, but I'm really excited to be a Gov.
What brought you to Austin Peay?
Relationships. Is talking about college athletics and building relationships. And so I knew my predecessor, Lisa Veras-Mitis, and I know our current athletic director, Gerald Harrison. I worked with Gerald closely at Duke for 8 years. And so an opportunity opened up and he thought of me. And I came out and visited the campus, and after being on site, it just felt like a really special place. It was exciting to see the progress, see all the really amazing things they're doing. They're switching conferences, lots of exciting things that he's doing here in the program here, and I wanted to be a part of that momentum and kind of leverage some of my skill set to advance it.
So you've worked at Duke, now at Austin Peay. Is it true you've also got your master's at Liberty and Queens?
I do. I have two master's degrees. I have an MDiv and I have an MBA. So I'm a nerd. I can't hide it. It's just I finished at Appalachian State in 3 years and then went to work for Wachovia. I was an auditor, if you can believe it, when there was a Wachovia and that existed. I audited investment bankers in that sector and decided I wanted to do something else. And I thought, I'm going to be a college professor. That's what I want to do. And if I'm going to teach anything, it's going to be church history. So introducing the MDiv, and that was an amazing, incredible experience at Liberty. I know they're in the ASUN. And I think after that, the MBA was a natural with a business and finance background. I wanted to do that too. So it was just a continued student. And I think all of that to say that I know and value education. And that's why I have worked in the past 12 years in the education sector. I know what education can do for students and the opportunities it can create. And so, yes, I'm a nerd.
Well, you love education, but you're clearly a spokeswoman for the ASUN with three different stops at three different ASUN schools. I mean, that's almost unheard of.
that was not planned, but full circle.
Well, you were talking about how you decided while you were in school what you wanted to do. What was the moment, or when did you decide that you wanted to be athletic administrator?
I didn't decide that on my own. It was kind of it was one of those things where the opportunities present themselves and you step into them. So I did decide to pursue finance, enjoyed that world. Again, I'm a bit of a rule follower, so I worked as an auditor. Imagine being 21 and sitting across from the head of a trading desk telling them how they could have done that differently or what risks they're exposed to and how to mitigate this. And so it was a really cool opportunity for a 21-year-old to experience and travel. But then, like I said, I lived through the Wachovia Wells Fargo acquisition and decided I don't know if I want to work in finance, and kind of shopped my resume and interviewed for a job at Duke Athletics, actually working in development. It was a prospect management job. Did not get that job. But on that interview, I met the head of compliance. Her name is Cindy Hartman. And she's like, why are you interviewing for this development job? You should work in compliance. And again, audit, compliance, some transferable skills there. So I went over and Cindy brought me back and interviewed me again. And I worked for Cindy Hartman for 4 years in the NCAA compliance area at Duke. And it was awesome. Like audit, people hate to see you coming. you're kind of the bad guy, right? What are you trying to discover? So we would go to camps and practices just to try to build relationships with coaches. And so they'd see us show up at practice and like, why are you here? What do we do? What's going on? And we're like, nothing, coach. We're just going and check it out campus and practice and build that relationship. And so it was fun. We used to do things called cookies with compliance to try to bribe people that come to compliance education sessions. So that was a ton of fun. But again, I fell into that role. It wasn't on purpose. It was kind of like, oh, I like it. And so being in the compliance, you got to see all sides, right? So the NCAA rules and bylaws govern every aspect of college athletics. And so I did that for 4 years. A position opened up and I moved into athletics HR, working directly for Gerald Harrison, who's our athletic director. And I loved HR. I have to be honest, I kind of geeked out. It was the best of both worlds. I got to use some of the finance background with contracts and incentives, but then do some really cheesy frou-frou things like we're going to have a watch party and watch the first round of the ACC tournament. And so it was the best of both worlds for me. Thought this is it. This is where I'm going to stay. And then an opportunity opened up in fundraising. And our fundraising arm at Duke was called the Higher Duke's Office. And so that's kind of athletic fundraising. And they presented me with the opportunity, and I thought, no, I don't want to be a fundraiser. I'm Excel spreadsheet, rule follower. I am not cheesy relationship like asking for money. Who wants to ask people for money? No. So it was one of those things I initially said no, and I thought maybe I should say yes. And our athletic director at the time, Dr. Campbell said, if you were my child, if you were my kid, I'd tell you to take the fundraising job. Knowing how to fundraise in college athletics is a really great skill set you should have. And so I listened and I worked in the annual giving side and major giving side. And it was a blast. It was awesome. I learned that asking people for money is really just, again, going back to relationships. It's just building the relationship and seeing if their passions align with your needs. So that's kind of how I fell into athletics administration. It was not, I'm going to school. This is what I want to be. It's kind of like doors kind of opened and unraveled and I kind of stepped into them.
So what haven't you done? Well, what's a job maybe at that school that maybe you haven't done? It sounds like you've been in pretty much everything.
Well, I'm getting to do some really cool things now. I have not always been student athlete facing. And so it's exciting to work directly with programs that touch the student athlete experience, student athlete welfare, academics, strength and conditioning, the training room. And so some of these opportunities now are neat. I don't want to be an athletic trainer. I don't have the chops to do that, but I like to support them and understand their role and their work. And so it's good to see this side of it. It's taken me a little bit of time to take off my fundraising hat because I lived that world for so long. I'm like, how can we cultivate donors? What events can we have? But it's really fun to be in this new realm of student athlete welfare. What needs our student athletes have, and how can we best equip them and meet those needs?
Being the deputy director of athletics, how important do you think it is for the younger generation or the future generation to see a woman like yourself in power?
I think it's really important for both female student athletes and male student athletes. I think it's exciting to see and hear from different voices, and hopefully it's inspiring, especially for a female student athlete to say, oh, she's doing that. And maybe, maybe it sparks something. I know the same type of influence our female student athletes have for younger girls watching them play. I hope to have that too. So after your sport, what do you hope to do? Maybe you don't go get 3 degrees, but what do you hope to do, and how can I be a part of that journey? So I hope it's inspiring.
Who have been some of those people who have inspired you or been some of the mentors in your life or your career so far?
I've had a lot. I've been exciting. I've had a really exciting opportunity to witness and to see and observe. I think at Duke especially, it's been really awesome to see some of the female leaders there go on and do amazing things. So I mentioned Cindy Hartman. She was my first boss at Duke. And she was great. She was fun. She made compliance fun. She made it relatable. She taught me really cool skills that I still use. Like one of her mantras was, people aren't inherently bad, and you don't have to educate, over educate. You hire good people. You hire good people, you have compliant programs. And so I still carry that with me. Hire good people. I think Dr. White, obviously Gerald, Nina King, who while I was there served under Dr. White as his chief of staff, who's now the athletic director. That's huge to see her be the first female athletic director at Duke. It's amazing to see that. So lots of different people in that world. I think some of the people I worked with more directly, in the Iron Dukes, Tom Kaufman, Joe Mainhertz, Jack Winters, those are great relationships that I still have, and I still am able to call them and talk with them, especially Jack and Joe, when I'm like, okay, especially my previous role with fundraising, sometimes you need to bounce ideas off. Like, I've tried this, I've done this, what would you do here? And so I've had the pleasure of working and seeing a lot of administrators do really great things. So it's been awesome. I hope to be that for someone one day.
How has Title IX made the world better?
I think it's done a lot of good. Now, I will say on the other side of that, I think there's more that we could do. There's still some more work that can be done. But I think as far as, I think the most apparent, the obvious thing is just participation. It's increased the numbers. And that's an easy one. Again, I'm a numbers kind of checkboxy person, so I look at that data first.
Yeah.
And I'm a nerd, so in preparation for this interview, I looked up some things. And so I did read that in 1971-72, there were not even 30,000 female student athletes. But now, 2021, there's 215,000 female athletes participating in teams sponsored by the NCAA. And that's huge. That's growth. That's progress. You can see that. I think what I'd like to see more of, though, is more administration. I just named Nina King as being the first athletic director at Duke, and that's a female. I'd like for that first to go away, right? So there's not as many outliers. It's a norm. It's an expectation that females are in prominent roles and taking on prominent positions and leading in that way. And so maybe fewer first and just more norms. We're not wowed by them because they're happening in more numbers, and we're seeing that more often. I think another area that we can work on in that Title IX is help to open up, but we should continue to expand. It's just quality. I think there's a difference between being equal and having equity. Both men's and women's teams can have a locker room, but are they equipped with the same things? Are they as snazzy and nice and bright and shiny? How can we make it equitable for both programs? So those are the types of things I want to focus on here. Just making sure that both student athlete experiences are equitable and memorable and great and executed with the same standard of excellence and high quality. And on the other side of that, just like compliance, it's all hands on deck. We used to say compliance is not just my job, it's everybody's job. And I think Title IX is not just my job, it's everybody's job. And so how can we equip people so that they're educated and they become advocates, and when they see things or they see gaps or they see holes, they know how to plug them. And it's not just me or females doing that, it's everyone. It's all hands on deck.
Now that we're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX that passed just a couple months ago,
Yeah.
in 50 more years, what would you like to see the world look like? What was maybe a number that you're analytics type of person, right? What's maybe a number that you'd like to see, or just in general, what would you like to see in 50 more years?
Yeah, I think some of the things I just touched on, I'd love to see more female administrators, more female leaders in athletic spaces, female coaches of male teams, female coaches doing big things in the professional spaces, professional sports spaces, so that it's not just a one-off or an outlier, but it's a norm, it's an expectation. I'd like to see equity across salaries for female administrators versus male administrators. It's not fun and sexy, but it's good, it's needed. And so how can we keep making strides in that area? As far as numbers go, I don't have one. You caught me. I'm unprepared for
That's
that.
okay.
I
That's okay.
just
You don't have to have one, but
yeah, and I think the other side of that too, and I spoke on it a little bit earlier, but just making sure that both men's and women's programs have are executed with high excellence. And so they don't have to be the same, right? So I mean, if a locker room is blue, the women's locker room doesn't need to be blue, but it needs to be just as nice and for that coach's liking. And so they're equipped with the same amount of resources and opportunities to make their programs successful, is what I'd like to see in the next 50.
Niesha, thank you so much today.
Yeah, this is awesome.
It was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.